Yeah.
So, but you're going to edit, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna clean up everything, do the editing and stuff like that.
Okay. So we set.
Yeah, we set. We can start.
Okay. And then with the volume, what do you rate? We can just be relaxed, just be ourselves. You can do the editing.
It's actually doing all the tapping.
Oh, cool.
So
cool.
we are absolutely fine.
Okay. So here's where it starts. First of all, I got the opportunity to read a book called Old African History Rediscovered.
Is it the big one you gave me last time?
Nope.
Oh, that one was only for about pictures, right?
Yeah, freedom, the freedom movement in pictures.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget the author's name, which is normal.
Yeah.
But so long I can say the title, it's easy for someone to get their hands on it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Though there's this guy who handed me African History Rediscovered. Okay. The same guy who handed me that book.
Yeah.
Reason is he believes I can digest the information and then dispense the information to him. So there was something that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it all starts in Africa.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying Africa is not because I'm African or I'm black, but the history of education is traced onto this continent.
Yeah. I mean, just sorry to block you short. Even just the Library of Alexandria. I mean, it was here, right here, if I'm not mistaken. So if I agree with the point that much of education really finds its roots in Africa.
Well, everything started here because we cannot run away from Timbuktu.
Yeah, true.
Exactly. And the credibility, the validity, and the evidence that we have today.
Yeah.
And then Mansa Musa.
Yeah.
And then I always had this question. I think we discussed this some time back. Said, look, are you telling me that Shaka Zulu wasn't a miner? Because if he had to use spearheads that are made out of steel, then it means you have to mine the same steel, because you cannot pick steel from the soil, you know what I mean?
True.
And in most cases, you need to blend it with other materials.
Yeah.
And I've never believed that the human brain has ever been dormant.
Though I've got a question I'd like to run to you.
Sure.
Do you think the colonial rule was entirely in the negative? Do you think there are some goods that we could draw out of the fact that Africa was once like a colony?
Okay.
Or just narrowing it down to Zambia. Do you think what came out of the colonial rule were purely like negatives or something like that?
Here's a fact that I've learned.
Yeah.
We human societies influence other human societies, whether we like it or not, whether we realize or not. There's certain things that we've inherited from the Orient, and there's certain things that the Orient emulate that we say picked from Africa or from the West Indies, from Europe. It's always been like that. Humans have always interacted. For Vasco da Gama to discover what he discovered in his travels, or Amerigo Vespucci, it means there was influence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But there's arguments that have been raised that with imperialism came the death of our culture and our originality. So do you think like, I mean, look, let's just narrow it down to say religion. I'll
try to be very honest.
Yeah.
First of all, I've never read any book concerning colonialism except what I hear being said, mostly by disgruntled people.
Okay.
Mostly, I've never come across people that will speak of the positives that colonialism brought, but personally, I think there are advantages and disadvantages in almost every scenario or every happening. Yes, the view of the African or the people that were colonized matters, because they do have some cries. I know of the triangular slave trade. I will not say that everything was good there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if they were taking people that were not needed in society, then either for stealing chickens or for doing whatever wrongs that they did around people in their societies, I still believe that they had to be taken away.
Yeah.
In as much as there were some people who shouldn't have been shipped, because the embarrassing thing of the shipment of the black slaves were those that perished during the journey, and you're talking of millions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think any country that was a colonial master then who had a hand in doing that can defend that and justify that.
Yeah.
And what we should talk about really is, were Africans compensated? Because I do know that Jews were compensated for the Holocaust.
Yeah.
I read an article where France did a mint and they say they'll be paying back compensations to people who were under their rule back then. But they were going to pay it in small sums of money over a long period of time.
Yeah, although there are things that you can't really, there are wounds that you can't really heal by just paying off.
And if they heal,
it's almost like reparations for blacks. Although reparations is like a whole different argument. But the thing is, for example, the Holocaust, I think those deaths cannot be really fully paid off. Like there are millions upon millions that died so brutally, in those camps. And just talk of all those people that died in the gulags, even just under Stalin's Russia. It was just like a whole mess. So trying to make up for the wrongs by paying off is a good move, quite alright, but I think it just doesn't get to the core of the problem.
Okay.
Perhaps the best thing that we can do is just try our best to learn from this history so that we shouldn't repeat it.
I like what you said, and this is what I was going to talk about. Humanity has to learn.
Yeah.
If humanity doesn't learn, then we're all doomed.
Exactly.
We need people to admit and accept, say, look, things that occurred shouldn't have occurred in the manner which they did. It's not everything. There were some things that were good. I'm glad that those explorers brought penicillin, syringes, and that's in as much as they also benefited from ancient machinery and tools which they found in the African setup. I don't think that Africa as a continent produced the world, but I know that the industrialized countries that we so refer to as the developed are the pollutants.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, well, look, they happen to have Harvard, Cambridge. Personally, I expect them to be taking the lead and making smart decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas a person who lives in an African village, who only farms or maybe fishes to sustain their family, is not polluting the globe in any way, and I can prove that. And we all know that. You don't need to be a rocket scientist in order for you to fathom that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole point is learning what has been learned, and sometimes before we experiment, consultation.
Yeah.
Consultation, it emancipates us. It makes us prevent certain catastrophes that which we shouldn't. For instance, the person who quoted electrical codes had to do a lot of pondering so that people do not get shocked. We would have had these wires naked, and then maybe our safety standards would have been unreasonably high.
Yeah.
What of toddlers who do not know how to talk, who haven't yet mastered our language? It would have been hard for us to communicate to them, say, hey, my son or my daughter, please don't go near that cable, because first of all, they're trying to figure out how to mention words. And usually the first words they say is tata or dada, mama, the boo gaga. So yeah, first of all, learning consultation. pondering, where we think through, we look at the repercussions that may occur due to our course of action.
Yeah, and that's just building on that point of environmental health and pollution.
Yeah.
I think it's only now that people are starting to see how things that you don't think over, like say for example deforestation, for example, boils down to affecting the environment as a whole. In fact, in Zambia just recently, under the I've just forgotten the name of that ministry, but they've started this tree planting process because they do realize that deforestation.
I think they've got a ministry for the environment.
Green something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a smart move.
And they're starting to see that it's actually very important to get into these tree planting processes, because there was even a time when the Ministry of Information and another ministry came to UNZA to like plant trees, in efforts to curb climate change. And since us we're still like a predominantly agricultural country, if climate change affects weather patterns and stuff like that, it will definitely at some point boil down into food insecurity, and we don't want to find ourselves in such situations, which is like really cumbersome. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and this climate change and just how it affects the environment as a whole, not just Zambia, but our global home.
I'm glad that you even mentioned that, because that's what I wanted to say. Okay, look, right now we're talking of Zambia. Yeah, Zambia is just a country in the southern hemisphere of the continent. But there's other countries, and then there's also other continents. I remember watching a cartoon when growing up, Pocahontas.
Yeah, there's information everywhere. If you want to be educated.
So tell me when to start.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. So, on education, we have tons and tons of books that touch all areas of our lives. True. Information is always subject to improvement. I was giving an example of how we used to communicate back in the ages. We had landlines or land phones. And then right now, we're using smartphones. So there was that transition. And then in our understanding of our environment, we only understand just a fraction. But even with the fraction that we understand, we also understand the catastrophes that can result if we go against certain physical laws. And here's a fact. We have tons and tons of information. We know what should be done in what case. If we're thirsty, for instance, we know that we need clean drinking water. Whereas if we take water that is contaminated, it will not only make us uncomfortable, sick, but it may even threaten our very existence, which goes back again to happiness. There's no person who can be happy while they are ill. Humanity has been plagued with diseases, with sicknesses of all sorts, and most of which are complex. We are groaning because we're failing to figure out. Naturally, we are all engineers. And according to my understanding, the term engineer means a skillful problem solver. So whenever there's a problem, what do? We find solutions. We do not whine and moan, oh, there's this problem, oh, there's blah, blah, blah. No, the question is, what's the way forward? If I drop a wallet with the 1,000 kwacha notes in it, and then I do not know where I dropped it, either it was in a very highly congested area, by worrying about it, will I bring the wallet back?
No, you won't.
Exactly. So, you wouldn't even know that I've dropped that wallet. That's me. Call it insane. But I do not understand people that whine. I do not care what you have lost. But the fact is, you've lost it and then you cannot retrieve. The question should be, what's the solution? What's the way forward? It's either I'll go and work for that money again, or I'll have to devise a plan. Exactly.
I think that's a good way to look at it, because at the end of the day, I think most of the things that really stress us out are like self-induced.
I've got evidence.
You can even vie for like alternative means to just solve your problems.
I've got a scientific question on how to look at that. How does the brain react if let's say you encounter a challenge unexpected challenge, and then all that dropping your wallet with a whole lot of cash, and maybe that's the last money that you had attached to you.
Yeah.
If you start worrying, the brain will know, it will just weigh you down. Your whole body will be affected.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look for solutions, say, okay, this is what has happened. What's the way forward?
Yeah.
What should I do?
And at some point, depending on the gravity of the stress, it can even turn into chronic stress.
That's what I'm saying.
Like it becomes like a serious illness.
The reaction itself shows you that 1, it is not normal, and then 2, it is not natural, and then 3, it is not smart.
Yeah.
Because if you're feeling hungry, the brain will let you know, say you're feeling hungry. Now, if you start whining because you're hungry, are you going to feel full? No. The question should be, what should I eat? Is there a tree nearby? Can you pluck any fruit that is visible within your reach?
Yeah.
If it means asking, like I do at times, ask for something to chew. If you've got some money, go and take some a meal.
Yeah.
And it could be any meal.
Yeah.
It could be a snack, or it could be a healthy meal.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I think let's like take it down to a lighter note. We've talked about a lot of important things. We talked about slavery, education.
Everything is important.
We've talked about the environment.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of weighty things. How about we boil down to like
we're going to touch
sentimental?
we're going to touch everything. I mean, look,
sentimental relationships. I want to hear your take on that. Just how we can, interact. Because I mean, we're social animals, and because we're social animals, we have all these emotional needs that we need to make up for. We don't just have intellectual or physical needs, but we also need to bond with the other folks. So like how can we bring that into this conversation?
Okay. Nature puts it like this.
Yeah.
Lovebirds. I actually didn't know that they were actual birds.
They're actual birds.
Yes. And then ironically, it's a type of a parrot.
A lovebird.
Yes. And then interestingly, when the partner dies, the other bird also dies.
Yeah.
Because they cannot live without the other partner. And I'm told, scientifically proven.
Okay.
And then I'm also told bees are also like that. They've also got a lifetime partner. So when the other bee dies, the other bee cannot survive the next day.
Yeah.
We have this thing in our chest called the heart. Fine. It pumps blood, but that's not the only thing that it does.
Okay.
Yes. It can get irritated, but it can also get excited in an unexplained way, but one that which can only be experienced and observed and felt by two people that are connected with, I'll call it the heart magnetic field.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get the concept.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to compare it to the force of gravity,
Yeah.
but now this is the force of the heart. Maybe we'll find a term for it, which would be even more interesting.
Yeah, and talking of relationships, there's something I've been thinking about. Like,
Sure.
have you ever noticed how it's so hard for an average guy to just commit and be like content with the particular relationship they're in? There's always that underlying thought that you could go a step further. You feel like deep down, like you could do better. You could vie for somebody who's like better looking and stuff like that.
Come again on that. Let me. Yeah.
Yeah, but my point is, sometimes you might have a good thing going, but just in the back of your head, you feel as though there's like a further step that you need to take. You feel like can't be me.
Okay.
Really arriving, like this is it.
Okay.
You feel it's almost as if like
you've reached a climax, and then you're not satisfied with the climax.
Uncertainty and unsatisfaction put together, and then that is like hindering you from just committing and fully enjoying what you have going.
Okay, again, interestingly, I think we did touch love, but we just didn't pay much attention.
Yeah.
The same example that we talked regarding the pros and the anti-climate change, global warming.
Yeah.
It's the same. There's greed. There's greed, and then there's smartness. So even when it comes to our relationships, there's greed. There are women that will date because of money.
Yeah.
Not because they're with someone who they share same interests, values, or let alone people that are attractive. Unfortunately, this is something that we all see from society, and some people even proudly propagate such.
Yeah.
Here's what I say. I did not pay anyone to love me, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think you paid your mom for your mom to love you.
Yeah, no.
And you love her, and she loves you. So if you didn't pay her for that kind of love, where she would take care of you, same as your paps, take care of you from infancy. And I used to talk about this, say, you know what? It's very expensive to have children. And I don't think I want to have children, as far as I'm concerned, because it's a huge project that most people do not ponder through, calculate, and really plan, and even understand. So, we, in the same way, have been cared for by our parents. They spend so much money, their time and energies in order for them to raise us up. They make sure that we had healthy meals, so that we can have that vitality. We brought smiles, and we still do bring smiles generally on people that love and care about us. So in the same way, love has got nothing to do with money. There's some people who've got the approach of saying somebody's financial state.
So I'd suggest we can do this as part 1.
Okay.
So we'll wrap up and just nail it down properly, and then we'll have a part 2 where we can record another session.
Sure.
Yeah.
So right now, what are we going to do now?
Right now, let's find the topic to close on.
Close on.
Yeah.
Not the love thing.
Yeah, we can end on love.
Yeah, because I was zeroing in on it.
Yeah. Okay, let's end on love.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. So, if someone feels they want to go and explore, experiment with someone else because they're not sure of how they feel towards you, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. Every person has got the right to choose and do what they please.
Yeah.
Be it for their own benefit or for their own harm. And then it's sad when they experiment and then the results of their experiments are actually catastrophic, and then they try to come back and then there isn't space any longer left for them to be accommodated.
Yeah.
So the secret is we need to learn more about ourselves and what makes us enjoy the moments. Then we can stick to that. A lot of people are in hypocritical relationships. They're dating just to put an impression to society. I've had people accuse me of homosexuality and the likes because I haven't seen it with girls. And little do they know that it's not easy for me to end up with the girl, even if she may appear pretty.
Yeah, there's more to the card game than you realize.
It's about the software and never the hardware.
Oh yeah.
It's what is contained in that person's head, their views, their values, what they enjoy, the intrinsic things that are amazing. And do they find those things amazing as well? If I view them as amazing and if I view them as intrinsic, do they also view them as intrinsic? And then mostly it all depends. If we all had the same level of information and the same reservoir to tap in of knowledge, then we're more likely to have a lot of similarities, which we all should